Hi, so this is a presentation on what caused my breast cancer, how to predict who will get it next, and how to prevent it. Seems like a lot of things to cover, but here we go. Um, just a short background on myself. My name is Mavis Satcher. I've been an educator for over 20 years. I have a bachelor's in science and microbiology and bachelor's and master's in education. And my cancer story started in June of 2017. I had a lumpectomy and a mastectomy, and then I've been cancer-free since August of 2017. It didn't have to go through radiation or chemo, fortunately. And so going through all that, and then last year did reconstruction. So um, I've been getting into a venture of sorting out what happened here. And so just a flag that this is for educational purposes only. I'm obviously an educator, not a medical profession. And so this is information that I found through my research and reading and kind of piecing information together that I want you to have some knowledge of it and understanding. And so this is information just for your knowledge, for your understanding. And then, of course, if you try anything, it's at your own risk. The information is not used to self-diagnose, and it's not a substitute for medical exam, cure, treatment, diagnosis, or prescription or recommendation. So this part of my discovery of information came from actually coming upon this book called Thyroid Healing. I was actually already had gone through some understanding of what might have caused my cancer, so I wasn't focused on that so much. And so I was really looking towards reading and understanding my hypothyroidism. And there was some sort of clue that at the health food store, they had a write-up about cancer a little bit, and they said there was some sort of connection between hypothyroidism and getting cancer. Although sometimes I would ask various people who had breast cancer or different cancers, and they didn't have any hypothyroidism. So it was kind of all over the board. And when I started reading the book, I realized that there were no scientific proofs in this author. And so this author is Anthony William here. And he goes by his own information from his connection with the Holy Spirit. So I was reading it with open mind. I had read lots of other books with lots of scientific proofs and background and journal writings and looking at different research scientists. So this one was a little bit different, but I kept open-minded to see what he had to say. And as I was reading the book, I realized the symptoms that he was listing was actually more fitting to my husband's and husband's family's health issues, actually. And you can see that there were a lot of symptoms of this virus that was flagged in the thyroid healing book. So basically the premise was that your thyroid was getting low because a virus was attacking it, but this virus does a lot of other things in your body. So for myself, I had the hypothyroidism, and then I had a lot of hair loss, but then I had a child and I thought it was all due to just having a child. And then I have cold hands, and of course I have the biggie here, the breast cancer. But in all these other things, I was like, well, no, I don't have any of this stuff. And so it didn't seem to, and you can see that my symptoms were kind of quite light, you could say. But then when I get to my husband's side of the family, my husband himself has past high blood pressure, high cholesterol. He's diabetic, and then his brother has Lyme disease. There's a lot of muscle cramping. My husband does have rich nails. And then his mother had goiter, and mother had breast cancer as well. And then there are like anxiety and depression in general and certain trends there. And then there's PCOS in the family, and then infertility, and then of course these things. And then my husband did have plantar fasciitis. So as I looked over the scope of my family and my husband's family, you can see that there's more of a trend there. And so now I had to kind of wrap my mind around the idea of viruses uh, causing cancer. And so if you heard my previous video, my health discoveries kind of all started on the beach of Cancun. I was just reading a biography by a scientist, Francis Collins, who's the director of the Human Genome Project. And he wrote out a couple of life verses, and one of them was the life verse of James 1:5. And it basically says, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. So back then, I was kind of racking my brain going, oh, what do I need wisdom about? And then I thought, I do want to know why I got breast cancer. And so from that point on, which was March of 2019, there were certain flags and videos and different research scientists that I read that kind of flagged about the harmfulness and the effects of glyphosate towards breast cancer. So I was kind of satisfied with that scenario, although not one factor always causes cancer. And now as I read Anthony Williams' book, it has shifted to my mind to viruses fueled by toxins together kind of result in cancer. So it took actually a couple of days to kind of wrap my brain around the whole idea about viruses causing cancer, because I had always been in the past that cancer was a cell that just gone rogue, and then your body immune system supposed to clear it out, and it couldn't clear it out, and then it just gone wild, and then a tumor or a lump starts, was my basic thinking of how cancer was formed in the past. But now that I see about viruses causing cancer, I had to kind of rethink and change my paradigm about viruses. And I am familiar with it in the sense that during my bachelor's of science, which was still a long time ago, but it was virology classes, they tell about how a virus is kind of very parasitic. It lands on top of your cell, and just these are like the viruses in this picture here. You can see they're outside, and they drill a hole in, and then they send their DNA in, and then their DNA kind of takes over the machinery of the cell. So it's kind of like a hijacker in a sense, and then they take over, and then they can make it cancerous. And I go, now that you think about that way, you can see how it can go that way. So now you can see that there's other viruses that have been cancerous, like HPV, HCV, which is the hepatitis C virus, which develops and could result in liver cancer. And so in most cases, specific viruses kind of affect certain areas. And so that's how certain viruses kind of affect different areas. And so here we can see HPV causes cervical cancer, hepatitis B and hepatitis C viruses are linked to liver. HIV is more to do with just suppressing your immune system, and then you become vulnerable to cancers overtaking your body. But there's other viruses like the HTLV, which is lymphocytic leukemia and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So these are stated in various cancer societies that these are viruses. And then here they do list out Epstein Barr virus as causing cancer, half of Hodgkin's lymphoma, and 1 in 5 in Burkitt's lymphoma, and then 8 in 10 cases of nasopharyngeal cancers. And only recently, in a paper study done in Cincinnati, you can see it down here on this Science Daily, recently linked with breast cancer. So that was 2018. So it's still kind of new in the research world, and much needs to be suggested. But the Thyroid Healing book has already mentioned it, and his was published in 2017. And so I was thinking, what if the cancer virus acted like AIDS? So AIDS would be sexually transmitted. AIDS is passed down to our children. And so I started to look at our family tree, and my own personal family tree. There's really virtually no cancer pattern in our family. We have one uncle that has of no blood relation who has cancer, and two aunts had some minor colon polyps, but they are fairly older as well, like 70 or 80 years old. But then when I look at my husband's family tree, then that's where I do see some patterns happening. And where it does start is my mother-in-law having breast cancer and bone cancer, and my father-in-law having skin cancer. And you look at each child, there's number one, oldest sister, second brother, third brother, and this is a large family. So there's also a fourth brother, and then this is my husband. He's the fifth brother. There's a sixth brother and a seventh brother. So I'm just gonna name them by number. And you can see all of a sudden there's all these patterns of actually symptoms going through. And I'll go back through the family a little bit more in detail, but I was quite perplexed that thinking through, if the virus was in the family, how come none of my brothers or my husband's siblings have cancer? So I was a bit confused. And the only two persons who had cancers connected in the family were actually wives of the husbands. And so three wives, myself, I think brother four's wife, and then brother two's wife. And so brother's four wife, I'll come back to her picture here. She's over here. She has lots of cancer in her family. And so you could almost excuse it that she got it through genetics or contracted another virus from her own family type of thing. And it seems to be quite a strong one because there's lots of family members who have passed on because of it. I guess in comparison, the virus that's going through my husband's family, my in-laws, it's not as virulent or as strong or potent, but it's still there. And so actually the irony is that where we do see cancer is actually wives of the siblings. And then, but the biggest one is that why didn't the oldest sister have any cancer? And she's supposed to have cancer. If you went with the whole idea of genetics, she should have had cancer if her mom had cancer, right? Is the genetic trend. Although most are saying that scientifically, the news now is only 5% is actually caused by genetics. So what's causing the other 95% of breast cancer? And so this number one sister here should have had cancer, and yet she didn't. And I was quite confused. I was like, why wouldn't she have cancer? Then one night it dawned on me, she was a smoker. And afterwards I talked to her a little bit more about it, and she had smoked from 23 years old to 55 years old. So even though she was born with the virus, the smoking actually delayed the growth or the proliferation of that virus in her. And so, and guess what? When she quit smoking, she had breast lumps at 55 years old. And then she had many symptoms of the Epstein Barr virus emerging, migraines, high A1C, diabetic. And she was like, what's going wrong with me? When I was smoking, I didn't have these issues. All of a sudden I stopped smoking, I actually quit. And now I got breast lumps. Now her breast lumps were probably, she said they're benign. Her doctor did not do a biopsy, but did an ultrasound biopsy there. And so I feel that the virus did not have enough strength at that time to actually get to the cancerous stage of taking over and making a cell cancerous. So, but it was still traveling through her body. So how breast lumps are formed is the traveling of the virus from the thyroid down to the liver. And so it just kind of gets caught. And so your body actually makes these lumps, these calcified lumps, as a way to coffin or encapsulate the virus and trap it. So it's actually a response of your immune system to create these lumps. So the lumps themselves are not necessarily bad in the sense that it's your immune system's trying to fight off this virus and trapping the pathogens in your body. Probably in hindsight, I would probably not have done a biopsy like I did before when I was diagnosed in June. In June there, they had done a biopsy a couple of weeks earlier, and it was like needles going right in and poking them. And now you think about it, you're actually breaking into your perfectly formed coffin and then now releasing those cells into the body. And there was this type of thought that that might have actually increased the speed of my cancer, because I had a lumpectomy and it showed the spread, and then so they had to do a mastectomy like 10 days later and go under surgery that way. So you can see these are the symptoms there. And it's funny that it's ironic that smokers are terrible hosts. Like even the viruses don't want to live in there, and they can't even live in there. So smoking is bad for you. It's bad for the viruses, but they just hide. The viruses just hide in your body, and then they come back out. So the cancerous EBV, which I'm dubbing as EBV-C just for short form, there's actually lots of strains of the Epstein Barr virus. Some are cancerous, some are not, and I think some have more stages. And I believe actually in the Thyroid Healing book, he does group them into different groups of strains and which ones are more powerful than others. And so, as I said, some of the family members here. So I have here SQ as has smoked and then quit. So most had smoked and then quit. And then after they quit, they seem to have these symptoms pop up. And then it kind of shows how the virus is starting to regain traction in the body there. So as a side note, I'm not endorsing smoking as a way to avoid cancer, because smoking obviously comes with its own set of health issues. And later on, there is a prevention system of being how to be more antiviral. And I hate cigarette smoke, but it's quite ironic, really, that this has happened. And when you look at the trends here, women seem to be much more susceptible to this virus. We seem to get breast cancer and fertility issues, and we have more stronger symptoms. The men don't seem to exhibit the cancer until probably later in life, and usually it's a skin or colon cancer there. And that's what I've been seeing in certain trends here. I'm just going to go back to the family tree here and just show how it goes and travels through from the starting of the mother-in-law to father-in-law. And so above them, they actually have no other cancer stories, or even relatives like their brothers or sisters never had cancer. So according to the number one sister here, so she mentioned that there's no other cancer except for these two. So we presume that they contracted through other sexual liaisons, and most likely from the father-in-law, because during wartime and stuff like that, so things like that. And so here, the number one sister here did say she had lots of fertility issues and she had trouble conceiving, but she still had two kids, a son and a daughter. The daughter has one son, but has lots of issues, and the sister-in-law mentioned that she has symptoms of ADHD. So you can see this virus is growing in this third generation now. And so the third generation now is born with it and is getting more. And then we go to the second brother. He has lots of health issues. He also has Guillain-Barré syndrome in the past. But just also want to flag that the first sister-in-law, she actually does have a verification that she has the Epstein Barr virus in her system. So through other medical research and testing, that was confirmed to her. But you can see the second brother, well, his wife was the one who had breast lumps removed. I'm not sure they're cancerous or not, but that was her story there. And then she has 3 kids. So I believe that when they got married, she only contracted when they got married there, and then she was able to have kids quite readily. So it doesn't seem to affect, the virus doesn't seem to affect fertility within like the first 10-year range of contracting the virus. But then this generation has had it since birth. So now they're in their 30s trying to conceive and have children. And this niece here, she's had miscarriages, and she only has period once a year, which is one of the symptoms of the Epstein Barr virus. And of course, there might be more symptoms. I'm not very detailed, but these are the key symptoms. But she was still blessed with 2 sons here, and then her siblings are both smokers, and so the brother didn't seem to have any issue having a child, but because the fathering doesn't seem to affect fertility as much as mothering does. So the Epstein Barr virus is harder on the women's side. The third brother here is a definite smoker with a wife who smokes too, and so because of the smoking, and I don't really know their health symptoms too much from discussion, so I'm not sure if they even have the virus, so testing would be more general there. So good thing my husband has such a huge family. So now we're at brother 4. He's had lots of liver issues, so health issues, kind of stemming and looking at the issues of the symptoms of the EBV. So the men seem to have more liver issues and high cholesterol and high blood pressure. And it's his wife that has had cancer at 44, around the mid-40s there. And that's when I got my cancer, was around mid-40s. So somehow with the hormonal change in the mid-40s of a woman's life, that seems to fuel the virus to get really multiplying. And then we seem to get at this age around 40s, and there's multiple women. And then other stage in life would be in the 60s, and then the other stage would be right after pregnancy. Seems to be a trend. But she has lots of cancers in her family, so she wasn't, in a way you could say, it might not have been from our family's strain, but it's hard to know. And then this is my husband. And so that's myself here with the hypothyroidism. And we had our child actually through IVF. And maybe now that I've researched this, we might not have been able to have a child. We had fertility issues, but we thought it was related to other situations and not related to our own personal fertility there. But my husband's first wife there was a smoker, never had breast lumps, but she didn't smoke for 15 years and then smoked again. And so she has some symptoms of it. Just in passing, she mentioned she had fibromyalgia, which is one of the symptoms of the EBV here. And so when you look back, my stepsons have these symptoms. There may be a little bit of infertility in the oldest stepson. The middle stepson has the most symptoms of the EBV, He's had dermatoxins and lots of hand rashes and rashes throughout his body since 12 years old. They had diagnosed him with autoimmune disease, but which is a paradigm shift for me as well, is that at the thyroid healing book, he mentions that there's no such thing as autoimmune disease. Your body will not fight against yourself. Your body is actually fighting a pathogen. It's just that it's just not identifiable. So when they see antibodies, they just assume they're fighting against yourself. So, and has recently gained a lot of weight and swollen. And the younger stepson has lots of cases of mono and many cases of strep throat, and strep throat infections are related with the EBV there. And so, and then that's my son. He's still very young. He's a toddler still. So it's hard to see the proliferation of it, but I'll show you later how I'm making steps to prevent the growth of this virus here for even a young son here. So brother 5, he's had lots of symptoms of the EBV, and he has had identification of the Epstein Barr virus in his system. So it's confirmed he has it. He also has Lyme disease and acid reflux and many health issues like that. And they both had smoked, and his wife smoked too, but then quit. But now her symptoms would be more migraines. And then their daughter has infertility issues, and she's the one with PCOS, and she would also have gained weight in a swollen setup sense. So it's showing the effects of the BBV, and the third generation again has been raised with this virus in them for a long time, so the virus can gain traction in your body. The last brother, youngest brother, brother-in-law 7, he has high blood pressure. He was married, he just recently divorced, but he was married to a smoker, so I'm not even sure this niece and nephew have the virus, so further testing needs to be done for them. They don't seem to exhibit any symptoms. She just had a child recently, and so it didn't seem like they had problems. But then again, until I asked, I wouldn't really know. So these are the trends. So this trend shows me how women are more susceptible, and then men seem to have more liver issues and things like that. And also that it is spread by unprotected sex there. So don't sleep with my son until, so it's a great way to get rid of all sexual partners, a fear factor. But unprotected sex actually would mean any past girlfriends would probably get breast cancer 15 or 30 years down the road. But for myself, because abstinence was part of my faith there, and then so I can actually point out that I was contracted through my husband's line there. And so that really showcases that it is contracted through unprotected sex there. And so you can see with all these symptoms of EBV, it's very difficult for even the medical community to deal with, such as my middle stepson there. He's actually been given and is still maybe still eating immune suppressing drugs there. And because of that, that is quite problematic in the sense that he's actually short-circuiting his ability to actually fight off the virus. So he has autoimmune, they think it's autoimmune disease, so they give him immunosuppressant drugs, but then he becomes more vulnerable to the virus, and the virus even grows even stronger in his body there. So it's a little bit weary that way to see that. And then in the end, your symptoms aren't really dealt with, but because you don't know the cause of what's happening, then no one really gets healed there. So Later on, you can still draw your own family tree, download the template, and note how you can follow the Epstein Barr virus down your family. The key thing is to noting the symptoms. If you really don't have symptoms, then it's showing that the virus isn't really growing in your family line there. And smoking does delay the progression of the virus in the family. Feel free to send your family tree to predictforcancer@gmail.com. And so I'm going to hopefully collect enough data to flag cancer researchers to take a look at the cancer prevention methods. Currently, I believe they are working on an Epstein Barr virus vaccine. Hopefully, they'll speed it up because in the meantime, there's more people getting cancer, breast cancer, and skin cancer through a virus, but not realizing that is the cause. And I did think about what's the implications of flagging somebody that they will get cancer, but I think for myself, if somebody told me that I was on the line of getting cancer and I could do something about it, I probably would have tried to do something about it instead of being blindsided and all of a sudden getting lumps in my body, which actually you cannot find through a breast exam. The lumps had to be through a mammogram. Screening had to be through mammogram. So even though the doctor said that they knew the lumps were there, they knew that they couldn't find them anyways, even though they're pea size. But I think if I knew ahead of time, if we'd given some warning, then I would try to do some prevention methods there. And of course, do more diagnosis too and mammograms to make sure and double check. And so this is the story of my sister. She's right here. And according to this position about viruses causing cancer and how it falls through contraction through your sexual partner or through the family line, you can see that her mother-in-law had breast cancer at 44-ish or 40-ish, and then it's passed down to her kids, but she adopted 2 kids and then had her son, which is my brother-in-law, whom my sister married. And so you can see that she's a carrier of the virus. And I can see some of the symptoms of the virus in my nieces here because they also have the dermatoxins of the EBV virus showing. And you can see that it's starting. And my sister's husband also has the same kind of skin ailment where they're trying to get the toxins out of their body and trying to clear it out. And so it's a pre-warning. She's just turned 40, so she has a couple of years before the virus can take over, and they've been married for over 10 years. So at this point, the virus is probably grown long enough to actually create some havoc in her system. But her symptoms are slightly different than mine. I don't think she has hypothyroidism, so it really varies in terms of each person's makeup and where the virus lands inside your body as well, or grows in your body. So we'll come to the best part, is prevention. How do you prevent the effects of a cancerous EBV virus? Or even if you have Epstein Barr virus but don't have cancer running through your body, you'll probably have these kind of annoying chronic issues constantly plaguing you. And so you can actually do something against viruses. In our medical world, antibiotics don't work, so then kind of doctors are kind of handcuffed. They don't really have any other things to do to help with these effects, but there are things that you can do. And one of them is organic sulfur. I began eating this 6 months ago, and just around that same time, I ran out of my hypothyroid medication, which is Synthroid. I was taking 75 milligrams for a long time, like for 15 years. So instead, I just picked up a pig hormone from the local health food store. But 3 months later, I had a normal annual physical, and my blood test came back normal. And so now I attribute that to the organic sulfur because, as I read in the thyroid healing book, Anthony Williams explained that the organic sulfur was actually shielding my thyroid from the virus. So by putting a shield over my thyroid was able to now work properly and actually produce T3 and T4 hormone as normal as before. And Anthony William also talks against taking the pig hormone and stuff. He does talk about it in a kind like, if you had a thyroid issue, why would you take an animal thyroid? It's like if you had a hand issue, why would you just eat pig hands? Would that really help anything? And so it's quite humorous in a sense, and it's kind of true why we would think one would do the job and another doesn't seem to make sense at all. So, but the key thing about organic sulfur is that it cleans out the toxins from the Epstein Barr virus. So when I've taken it, I have noticed a big noticeable difference in my muscles. I used to have soreness all over, and when I get a massage, it was quite painful, you could say. Like every spot that was touched, it was kind of like a little wincing here and there. But now when I have taken it, it has been really helpful. And I initially took it just for scar healing and things like that. But now that I realize how it can actually clear out the virus's toxins and the effects of the virus that way, and also protect my thyroid, now I'm realizing that I'm doing like a lot more by just taking organic sulfur. So an interesting side note, when I was talking to my sister-in-law about it, she had mentioned that back in the Northwest Territories where she had worked previously on a reserve, she said that they had a tradition of burning sulfur in a room, and then the kids on that reserve rarely got sick or had colds. But nearby in a neighboring reserve, they didn't have that practice, and those kids were always had runny noses and sick on a regular basis. But sulfur kind of shielded them from the sickness. Now, obviously, this stuff is not easy to eat. It's crystals, is very bitter. I put it in half a glass of water and stir it. It's the first thing I do each morning. If I feel the effects of the toxins, I'll do another round around like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's just 1 teaspoon, and you scoop it into half a glass of water and you stir it. Nothing really dissolves. Some of it dissolves, but it just becomes crystally with water, and then I just scoop it into my mouth and eat it, and you pretty much have to chew it. Some people eat it just straight without water or whatever, so you have to have a setup. So obviously, how am I get organic sulfur in this format to my toddler son? And so I could mix it with some juice, but I'm not sure how much I'm getting. But another one is actually to take Epsom salt baths. Magnesium sulfate. Magnesium is good for the muscles to relax, but and most people take Epsom salt baths for that, but it's actually the sulfate that's actually the important part. And through your skin, you can absorb the sulfur from the sulfate part of magnesium sulfate in Epsom salt bath. So there was a time period where I didn't have him bath or showered him instead, and then he started to get lots of runny noses and colds. And then I put him back on the bath after reading more of this information, and then now he has stopped. And over, very flu-ish season, he was still okay. So, and there is an MSM lotion out there that's 14% lotion, so you can put it on the skin of a child to get some more sulfur in there. So that's one system or one method of preventing effects. Another one is very key. I think if you don't do anything else, do this one, because the fat soluble vitamins are very important. It's K2, A, and D. And if you want lots more information, I did another video. There's only 2 videos, but that I touted as 3 food deficiencies that cause disease. And vitamin K2 fights off leukemia and lung cancer, prostate and liver cancer. And so in the studies in the lab, they have put vitamin K2, A and D with leukemia cells, and it will actually kill off the cancer cells. And then there are actually some rebellious cancer cells that won't die off. So the vitamin K2 actually goes in and converts them back to normal non-cancerous cells. So it's quite amazing what this vitamin K2 can do. But when you think about it, and the researchers don't know exactly the mechanism of what's going on, but they just know that that's what it does to leukemia cells, to lung cancer, and to liver cancers cells. And so putting 2 and 2 together, I think actually the vitamin K2 actually kills off the virus, the pathogen, kind of takes it out of the equation almost. And so I think that many of the cancers caused by viruses are actually removed by vitamin K2. It's kind of reversing the DNA and pulling it out, the effects of the virus, and taking the virus out altogether. So it's so if you don't do anything else, do this one, vitamin K2, A, and D. And I'll put a link under it. And as I said before, I have no monetary gain from promoting these products. These are the products I've found that are useful, and most of it is because I can use these products for my son, toddler son. It's very hard to feed pills to a toddler son, so this is in drop form. And I put it in his milk straw right before he has his morning milk and his evening milk, and then he drinks it in and he can't even taste it. And I give him 10 drops in the morning and 10 drops at night. And on a side note, it actually does a lot of other things too. Vitamin K2 actually has 18 other benefits, and believe it or not, probably on another video I'll do, is that my son had actually 8 cavities, and then by putting him on this vitamin K2, 6 months later, it turned to 3 really small cavities. So from having to crown teeth and drill and things like that, it went down to just really small cavities. You probably should attend to it. And so I have another storyline on that one, but hopefully you will take vitamin K2. It does come from food, grass-fed meats, and things like that, but it's very difficult to know how much you're really getting. So sometimes I'm coming from the benefit side of doing supplements, knowing for sure I got it, but I still will eat grass-fed meats, bison, game, deer, venison, rabbit, if you feel like it, but any animal that eats grass, you can eat, because the animal is what converts the K into K2 in their body, and then we eat their body meat to actually get the vitamin K2. It's also found in natto, and so you can do that. But you can see there's a variety of benefits from vitamin K2, from creating myelin, which is the protective coating around your brain cells, so it clears out free radicals, so it reduces your chances of even getting Alzheimer's. It clears out the calcium in your arteries, so it's quite amazing in how to help lower blood pressure. So there's a lot of things. It reduces mini strokes, so it's part of the whole clearing of the plaque. A lot of people now are eating vitamin D, and vitamin D actually absorbs minerals into your body, or calcium into your body, but you can't get rid of it. It's stuck inside your body. And then you start forming like kidney stones, and you get clogging of your arteries. And you don't know what's going on, because the trend right now is just vitamin D, vitamin D, vitamin D. But actually, no, you need this 3 in conjunction. You need K2 and A. K2 puts it in the right place into your bones and your teeth, and then A helps you actually pee it away, pee out excess calcium. And the D helps you absorb the calcium. So you still need D to absorb, but everybody's just doing D, but not A and K2, and then they're clogging themselves up inside and wondering what's wrong when they're trying to be healthy. And this is what's wrong. They're not having the right balance of the vitamins altogether. And another way to prevent Epstein Barr virus effects is chlorine dioxide. This one, though, is called Miracle Mineral Solution, MMS, by Jim Humboldt. There, it's through my brother-in-law there, who tried it out, And he was one who discovered it because he was battling Lyme disease, and loads of antibiotics were not working, which actually Anthony William mentions that Lyme disease is probably virally caused and not bacterially caused, and hence why antibiotics do not work. And so essentially chlorine dioxide is a water sanitizer. And so since we're made 70% of water, it just clears out viruses and toxins in our body. But it's tough to ban or buy right now because it's banned by the FDA. But my husband can buy, and brother-in-law did buy it online somehow. And it did seem to work. My brother-in-law actually cleared himself of Lyme disease with it, and all his symptoms are gone. And my husband, for a time period when he did it, all his symptoms of EBV were gone, like the liver issues, the high blood pressure, or high cholesterol, and even high glucose. His diabetes was kind of gone for a couple months there. But eventually the virus comes back, and then you have to maintain it. So this is a great way to just have a fresh start in a sense. So you can Google that one a lot because there's lots of talk about that one there. So more antiviral tips, sore throats. So bee propolis is very good at being antiviral, and I make my own tonic. It's kind of gross, but it's very effective. It's raw honey, vinegar, wedge of lemon, and a crushed garlic, and I drink it all, the raw garlic and all, when I feel like I'm just about to get sick, and then in the morning I'm fine. So I think it's the power of the garlic, and everything is so gross when you eat raw garlic like that everything dies, I think. The virus goes into hiding. So Anthony William, in his book, Thyroid Healing, has a lot more antiviral foods outlined, and focusing on what foods and explaining in good detail as to what's anti-EBV, what's anti-cancerous, what protects your thyroid, and what kind of heals the damage that the virus has done to you already, and then how you can heal yourself. And so we've started with the aloe vera water, and so my son drinks it. We tried this George's brand, the purple lettering, and it's very good. It's very clean. You actually want more of it. So, and you don't have to drink very much. He just has to take 2 tablespoons a day. So we like that one. Of course, we always try to incorporate all these nuts and walnuts around and all these foods, and we eat a lot of pears. And so you can see that it just helps refocus your food buying to eat things that are more antiviral, because once you have this virus, it's kind of in you for life until they figure out a vaccine or a way to eradicate the virus in your body. We'll just have to make do with actually watching our symptoms and protecting ourselves with the organic sulfur, with the vitamin K2, and then just focusing on antiviral foods like this. And here are lists of the antiviral herbs. And so from this listing, I've started to do the changa mushroom a bit to try it out. But this is where we can share what seems to work for you or what doesn't seem to work. And you try to boost your system to fight it off. And so I just want to end this with thanking my extended family and friends who entertained all my questions that I keep asking. I also want to thank God for helping me get to this point so I can actually help my son and stepsons towards better health. If you know what you're trying to fight against, then you are much more better armed at focusing on what's causing the problem and then dealing with that there. And I hope that this information can help yourself or your loved ones to help protect them from getting cancer and getting to that point. Feel free to subscribe. I don't do too many videos, but if you do, but you can send this video around so I can collect more data and just get the word out for, if not for educational purposes, to be aware that this is what's happening around. And hopefully with more data, cancer research will bend towards more eradicating viruses. And I mean, they know viruses cause cancer. They're already vaccinating HPV, all the 10-year-olds now from getting cervical cancer, but they probably need to do actually this virus. And I think it's hard to actually know which strain to actually vaccinate against because there's so many out there. And thanks for taking the time to watch this. Talk to you later. Bye.